de na danga de la me to ni la ju ro.
This is mine.
Well, here we are. Good morning, everyone. While you're getting situated, I'm going to give a quick introduction, and then we'll get started with our meeting. Welcome to our second annual membership meeting. I'm Bill Prentice, a member of the Dawn Mountain Board of Directors. I joined the board in 2021, and we're delighted to have all of you here with us. Before we start the annual meeting, I just want to quickly remind us of Dawn Mountain's guiding values. They are compassion, community, transformation, and practice. Compassion, which is the heartfelt kindness toward ourselves, all beings, and our shared environment. Community, belonging and sharing with others. Transformation, by means of individual and collective growth through practice and grace. And tradition, which is the kind guidance and wisdom offered from our lineage. These values are what guide our mission to further the spiritual growth of our diverse community as a living bridge between traditional Tibetan Buddhist teachings and curious people everywhere. So once again, welcome all of you curious people. I am one of the 4 members of the Dawn Mountain Board's Administrative Council. You'll be meeting the other 3 members in just a few minutes as they make their presentations. In the interest of time, I will not be praising them separately, no matter how much they deserve it. Please take my word for it that they are awesome. I bask in their wisdom, and we all benefit from their dedication each and every day. Bless you for serving. The AC, as we affectionately call it, was formed in 2020 to oversee the administrative functions of both boards' operations, the Dawn Mountains and the Tibetan Buddhist temples. We have taken much of the operational load off our beloved lamas and the other members of both boards, and I'm delighted to be serving on it. The AC also works very closely with our interim executive director, Wendy Fillmore, who recently left the board to take on that role, for which we are very grateful. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the agenda and we'll get started. We'll first hear from our beloved lamas, Rigzen Drolma and Namgyal Dorje, also sometimes known as Ann and Harvey. Then we'll have presentations from the other members of the AC. Kate Hutton, our VP of Administration, will start off with an update and a brief discussion of our 5 strategic objectives. Joanne Snyder, our treasurer, will give us a financial update, and Carolyn McKnight will give us a presentation on the work of the program working group. After that, she'll facilitate the question and answer period. All of the presentations will be concise, so we'll have plenty of time for your questions after Carolyn's presentations. Now, you'll be getting a lot of this information, but I'm going to do my 2 cents worth here. One of the ways you can ask a question is by using the raise hand function in Zoom, which on my screen is down on the bottom of the window. It's under the reactions tab at the bottom. You hit the raise hand emoji by clicking on it, and when you're done, click on it again, and it'll go away. Carolyn will give you a lot more information. You'll get other information as we go along so that you can get your questions answered. So that's all I have to share with you for right now. If you would please give your kind attention to our beloved scholars, translators, and spiritual teachers, Lama Rigzen Drolma and Lama Namgyal Dorje. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much. Greetings to all of you. As you have probably noticed, life is full of choices. And the central choice of my life was my apparently out of the blue decision to go to India and study Buddhism with Tibetan teachers there. I met Harvey after he had made a similar decision. Fortune held, we both went to India, and we have studied and practiced ever since with 2 generations of world-class teachers, scholars, and meditation masters. They inspired and changed our lives. We founded Dawn Mountain to share what we learned, and more basically, to share with the help of many others, including many of you, what is possible for all of us during our precious human lifetime. The old ones of Tibet, the Nyingma, refined over many centuries the teachings known as Dzogchen, the Great Completeness. Dzogchen shows us above all how to recognize that we are already whole, complete, and that the troubles we inevitably face cannot deface our true nature. I find this to be a profoundly healing message and relevant for everyone. And fortunately, there are many streams and rivers to this ocean. All our programs, actually, secular, deeply traditional, or somewhere in between, provide opportunities to sense this nature for ourselves. Some taste of this, some experience of your own true face is important for everyone, the curious beginner, the committed practitioner, the lifelong seeker. Our Dzogchen Cycles program rises as a great wave from this ocean. It is born of our very precious and blessedly close relationship with one of the great Dzogchen masters of this era, without doubt, Atum Pela Rinpoche. Through the Dzogchen Cycles, we are able to offer our community intimate connection with Dzogchen, the most sacred and swift path taught by the old ones. The first 3-year cycle began in 2017 with teachings on the very accessible 7 trainings that Atum Pela Rinpoche emphasized as a foundation for all our practice. I was present as Rinpoche wrote or received many of the revelations we share through the Cycles program. Even when I did not know what was happening at the time, I just saw that he was writing, for example, I could feel power and blessings charging the air. He was writing. I was crying. I didn't know why, but it was a kind of purification. And this is true of all these teachings. The Cycles curriculum is a medley of teachings that introduce, deepen, and bear real fruit for us. Each year offers a particular window into our nature. Like the sky, our nature is always the same, and yet we understand the sky more completely when we see it in more than one light. At dawn, clear and pink. A little later, wide and blue. At midnight, deep, dark, bright with stars. Skyscapes astonish us with their variety, while sky itself does not change. In the same way, different practices show us the richness of what we are. From the beginning, as we shaped the Cycles program, we decided, after receiving his very strong blessing, which touched us enormously, it was so unexpected in its enthusiasm, we decided that Rinpoche's revealed practices and his explanations of them would be a central part of Cycles. Some of these, like our upcoming May retreat, are found nowhere else. Teachings from Lama Tenzin Sampel, known to many of you, are vital rivers flowing into the ocean of Dzogchen, as are the Seeing to Being cycle of practices, which I developed through inspiration from Rinpoche. In brief, Dawn Mountain as a whole offers a luminous, lattice play of practices, including teachings on the elements, on foundational practices, Ngondro, on meditating like a Buddhist, even if you are not one. We also explore key topics of the Dharma during our Teaching Tuesdays, and we look forward to when we can resume our profoundly meaningful and beloved children's program. So, whether you want to just try putting a toe in the Dharma ocean or swim there with your whole heart or make any type of connection in between, we can suggest a program for you. These programs are our offerings to curious people everywhere. I want to also say that very intentionally, we don't only teach. That is to say, we translate and transport the Buddhist world into our own time and place and connect it with our own personal circumstances. That is our deep aspiration. We make it real as we gather to practice. We share poetic song, ritual richness together. We talk about our challenges, and we celebrate our personal and collective growth. These are ways in which we embody our core values, already mentioned by Bill, of compassion, community, tradition, and transformation. Our songs and all the rest open the pores and powers of our intrinsic goodness and our innate wisdom. Our prayer is that these will continue for a long time to further everyone's potential for becoming the most generous participant in this world's activities that they can be, that we can all be. May it be so, and thank you for listening.
In 2007, Adzon Pela Rinpoche began a conversation with Lama Rigdzin Dolma about a framework for understanding practice in a big picture manner, a progression which naturally offers liberation into the freedom of our mind nature. Over some years, Rinpoche and Anne conversed about an understanding of practice within this framework. This frame, which is called Seeing to Being in English, is part of a long lineal tradition of Dzogchen teachings. The first stages relate to more focused and reflective practice, and the latter two to more fruitional sensing and being states. One of our biggest challenges in the modern era is bringing a sense of deep realization into our practice. We seem to prefer the action of doing and find some challenge in simply sensing or being in the present. We as teachers ourselves are living in our modern era, and we personally appreciate the challenges associated with arriving at a sense of just being with peace and clarity. It's as hard for us to put down our cell phones as it is for anyone else. The framework that Rinpoche and Lama Rigdzin worked on in unison allows us to appreciate that there is a circular and repetitive aspect to practice. Namely, more focused and mindfully reflective practices can lead to spacious opening and realization. And that realization of spacious being can begin to undergird our spiritual practice and more of our lived experience. Part of this process, and it is an exciting process, involves becoming aware of subtle states. And that's why we encourage our students to slow down, sense, and sometimes share in an exercise what they are experiencing. Our community, having people together, supports our capacity to do this. In general, we won't experience something if we do not know it is possible or open an opportunity to be with our experience. Part of our ongoing education is to let our students know what is possible so that they can come to acknowledge experiences that they might otherwise miss. Classically, this is called an introduction to spiritual reality. In modern American Buddhist English, it's often referred to as pointing out instructions. There are many rich spiritual virtues and experiences that we are honored to introduce. Our modern habit is to skip quickly, like a flat stone on water, from one screen to another. One thing that we are constantly aiming to do is to provide an opportunity for our students to know or inhabit their experience and then relish or abide in it. This turns out to be a fairly large challenge. The process of introducing students to subtle aspects of experience is a process of transformation, and it is rare. We understand all the teachings and practices that we offer support or lead to natural liberation into our mind nature. So there's a process of moving from effort to non-effort. So there is always a necessity for some efforting, and then there's a way of learning to be relaxed. These teachings and practices include mindfulness on Sunday mornings, led by our wonderful mindfulness instructors, our Tuesday evening Dharma explorations with our excellent senior student instructors. Also includes our children's program, led by Simone Woodage, where we are planting the seeds. Ultimately, we hope that the students who work with us will, of course, also experience some understanding of their deep mind nature. And finally, all of our teachings include lectures and retreats by outstanding guest lecturers and teachers. Our large framework is seeing to being. It is important to appreciate that there's a central goal, a state of realization associated with illumination, freedom, compassion, and capacity. And any pieces of that that we can garner through practice, of course, is very, very helpful for our daily lives. Traditionally, these goals are described in 3 words: can, say, and nu. Profound knowing, tenderness, and ability. In some of our classes and retreats, we offer guidance for more oriented focus and reflection. And we see these as being possible due to our Buddha nature. It's kind of from the depths of our being radiate possibilities for focus, for reflection. When we teach focus and reflection, it's to facilitate concentration, compassion, and wisdom. And other practices we feature are from Adzon Pela Rinpoche, are meant to facilitate the emergence of these very same qualities in the context of structured practice dependent on lineal blessings. All allow us to feel more at home, more compassionate to ourselves and others, and with deeper practice contribute to a sense of deeper clarity and a sense of touching into something profound and freeing. We are attracted to the teachings because they speak to something so resonant and natural, something so at home and authentic. Adzon Rinpoche has prophesied his lineage of practice will spread widely in our area, and he's encouraged and blessed us to be part of that. He is intentional with whom he lets to be close to him, and in particular, this is evident at the time of treasure revelations. As Lama Rigzin has mentioned, she's been present at the time of 3 treasures coming forth: Yeshe Tsogel, Manjushri Dzogchen, and Avalokiteshvara Dzogchen. In 2014, Rinpoche specifically diverted Lama Rigzin from her prior travel plans and instructed her to come with him to Potu Island, site of the revelation of Avalokiteshvara Dzogchen. Because of her unusual historic witnessing of these moments, she is in a unique position to share the blessings of the treasure transmissions with us. She was there. Avalokiteshvara Dzogchen is the focus of our coming up retreat of Dzogchen cycles and our ongoing retreats for the coming practice year. We see this retreat and the retreats to follow during the cycle's practice year as an opportunity for all of us to deepen our orientation to compassion from within a context of a Dzogchen orientation through and through. And we've been exposed to both many compassion teachings and many Dzogchen teachings. And this is a very, very particular treasure and a presentation that is very, very unusual. We're very, very happy to be bringing it forward. We offer the Dzogchen Cycles program to provide a coordinated approach to practice for practice for the individual student over the course of a year. Having individuals dedicate to this group endeavor over the course of 1 year has a powerful strengthening effect for every member of the community. There are individual and community benefits. For those individuals living regular lives in the modern world who are able to commit to participate in our Dzogchen Cycles program over the course of 3 years, we offer a taste of the commitment and rewards that are available to those who participate in more traditional 3-year retreats. We are so pleased with the community of students and those of you who are gathered here. We have, and the new students we've been attracting. The metaphor of Indra's net of a lattice of jewels, each reflecting one another in a most exquisite manner, is true of what has come together in our community. It is really quite amazing. Even when we have not been able to meet in person, which we sorely miss and look forward to in a deep way, we are each being affected by our teachers, our lineage, and one another in a manner that is so supportive at a time when there has been so much darkness in the world. We affect one another verbally and non-verbally, as is articulated on the Tantra, on the Upadesha instructions, on the motions of the geese, where it says, geese live with geese. Their pith instructions is their motion with one another. We are like that. May we continue with good auspices, and I offer everyone Tashi, Tashi Delek, Mangalam. May good fortune be with all of us.
Thank you, Lamas. Thank you very much. We'll hear from our Lamas at the very end of the program for a brief period as well. Now we're going to switch to our presentations. The first one is by our seemingly tireless Kate Hutton, the Vice President of Administration. She joined the board in the 2009-2010 timeframe, and she's been the VP of Administration since 2020. Kate?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, and welcome to our second annual membership meeting. We'll be covering what's happened in the last year, but also I want to talk a bit about who's helped us make that happen. Our Lamas just spoke a bit about being. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about doing, because there is a lot of doing that happens, and it is helpful. So, as you know, we have people who you see in front of the webcam. For example, our wonderful meditation instructors, our meditation teachers, Sunday meditation teachers, who have year after year showed up several times a year and given meditation instruction and given the gift of Dharma. We've also had our instructors in training who have started to teach Dharma explorations, some of their own classes. This has been something that's grown over the past year or so. It's been wonderful, again, in front of the web camera. And we have people working behind the scenes, so to speak, behind the web camera, who are also doing quite a bit. And I wanted to acknowledge them. So if we could, first I wanted to introduce our board, and then I'll just show a little bit about some of the other groups of people and our volunteers. So our first, we have two boards, as you know. We have Dawn Mountain Board, we have the Temple Board. So I'll start with the Dawn Mountain Board. Our lamas, Lama Namgyal Dorje and Riksen Droma, they serve on both the Dawn Mountain Board and the Temple Board. And then the other members of the Temple Board are Carolyn McKnight. If you could just wave your hand so people can see you. Yay. So that's Carolyn, and she joined us, I think, in 2018. Bill has introduced himself. Then we have, and he joined us just last year as a new board member in 2020 and has jumped right into it with the admin, being on the administrative council. Joanne Schneider, who has been with us, I think, since 2009 or 10, and has been our treasurer most recently. And Simone Woodage is also on the Dawn Mountain Board. I know she's here. There she is. Thank you, Simone. Always there for us when we need her. She's amazing. And then also Wendy Fillmore joined the Dawn Mountain Board this past year as one of the new board members. And she has stepped aside for a short time while she is serving as interim executive director. But I wanted to recognize her as a person who has joined the board, even though she is now our executive director, interim executive director. And I wanted to thank her so much for stepping forward during a really critical time, transition time. It's been a huge benefit for us for her to be serving in this role for us. So thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay, so on the Temple side, we have Gary, who you all know. Yay! Thank you so much, Gary, for everything. I also serve on the Temple side as well. Janet, I think Janet is here she's like on vacation, but I think there she is. Amazing. Janet, where are you right now? Maybe she can't say. She's actually on a cruise. I think she's somewhere in Europe.
Yes, I'm on the ship right now. Today we were in Malaga, Spain, and it was great. I went to Granada and saw the cathedral. And well, anyway, tomorrow we'll be on at sea for one day, and then I'll be going to Portugal. So far it's been really great, and I'm really enjoying it.
Well, thank you for taking some time from your vacation. Janet had scheduled a cruise before COVID, and it just turned out that it was rescheduled for during the time we're having the annual membership meeting. But this just goes to show some serious dedication that she is here online with us today. So thank you so much. And then the last but not least is Vatna Vara Tarajalu. I hope I said that right. And she also, there she is in her work clothes. Thank you. And she also joined us this year, this past year as a board member. And thank you so much for being here and for joining the board. So we've had 3 new board members brought in wonderful new energy, new perspectives, just really helping us out. So thank you so much, everybody. Okay. Okay. Let me see if I can get my... Is my thing not working? Here it is. Okay, so we looked at the board members. I wanted to talk a little bit about the other volunteers that we have. So if you're looking at this screen, we've got volunteers on one side, paid staff on the other. all these people bring together time, talent, and energy to get done what we have gotten done this year, which is amazing, I have to say. So we have we have committees, we have the administrative council, we have the program working group, and we have other individual volunteers who have helped us get many things done that are on our priorities list for the board. In addition to these groups of volunteers who've come together to help us in contributing their time, talent, and energy, we also have, as I said, Wendy Fillmore, who is our interim ED, and also Jerry and Emily, who have held down the fort for so long through all sorts of staffing changes. And I really want to thank you for just keeping things moving forward, keeping things happening as we need them to happen. Here, if you were here last year, this may be familiar to you. These are the 5, even though we have a lot of aspirations, these are the 5 top board priorities that were identified in August 2020 by the board when we had a board retreat. And we decided that we would focus on those in order to be able to make some progress. And the one that we really have been drilling down on is completing the renovation and attempting to move into the building. So these are the 5. All the various groups of people have been very helpful to try to move these forward. This year we started working with a contractor named Texana. They were our they supervised this construction, brought their expertise, helped us move forward a lot on the renovations. In addition to Texana, our volunteers have been Don Urowitz and Simone Woodage, who've come and helped whenever needed with the building, keeping their eyes on the building. Our dear llamas have gone there, just making sure everything looks good. If they saw any problems, they'd let us know. And then we work again with Texana and move things along. As COVID kind of dragged on and we weren't able to meet together, we weren't able to, kind of assemble, and the cost of labor and construction materials went up and up and up. The board started to say, hey, we're a little concerned about how the renovation costs are impacting the long-term health of Dawn Mountain. So what we did was engaged a financial consultant and asked them to look at a couple of scenarios, or 3 actually. And the 3 scenarios were to completely renovate the building and move in. What would be the cost of that, and what would be the long-term implications on the financial side if we were to do that? And that would mean actually getting a certificate of occupancy, which means that the city allows you to move in. So you have to kind of hit all these points in the checklist and get their approval. The second was to renovate the building and lease it out for another party to rent, but give us income. So if we followed that model, what would that mean for us over the course of 3 years financially? And then the third was, okay, what if we do the absolute minimum we need to in order to sell the building? And then go ahead and sell it? What would then be the financial implications of that? So we looked at those 3, and the clear result was selling the building. Unfortunately, the clear result was that would bring us the best financial outcome and financial health. So we made this decision based not only on that, but also other considerations, partly the inability for us to come together, the unknownness of when we were going to be able to come together as a Sangha and practice together. We very much want that, but it's uncertain still. So doing this financial modeling really helped us, we feel, put us on the road to financial stability. It's a tool that we can use going forward because it was set up in a way that we can make changes to it as we need to. And so we can use it as to guide us in some of our decision making, to really understand our numbers, our financial situation really solidly. So in addition to that, doing the rent, working on the building, working on achieving financial stability. There's been a lot of work on the programmatic offerings, and Carolyn will talk more about that later on. We have done a lot on board development as well. We put in addition to bringing in three new people this past year to join the boards, we also put into place a system that will get us going with continuing to bring in new people on an ongoing basis, to bring in new energy, new perspectives, that kind of thing into the board. So we really look forward to having new people join us in the coming year. So thank you very much. Thanks for your attention and thanks for your practice. I'm handing it back to Bill.
Thank you, Kate. So now we'll go to our treasurer, Joanne Schneider. She's been a board member also since the 2009-2010. She's been treasurer since 2020. And I'm confident that in a former life, she was the equivalent of a CFO for a Fortune 500 company. Fear not, she's a model of clarity. Joanne?
Thank you, Bill, and good afternoon, all. I'm in New York, so it's afternoon. On behalf of Dawn Mountain, it's a privilege to be able to thank all of you for your 2021 contributions, not just your money, but gifts of teachings, time, effort, and knowledge, along with your active program participation. What you contribute allows us to provide the gift of the Dharma to the world, particularly through Adzon Rinpoche's teachings. And so my report is going to acknowledge those folks who've helped us raise money, particularly through the Development Committee and its work. And so I'd like to call out Jerry Eddington, Teresa Einhorn, Jeannie Enders, Albrecht Enders, Dana Fabro, Karen Kalajowski, Carolyn McKnight, Bob Myers, Janet Montez Diaz, Carolyn Niehaus, Logan Phillips, Claire Villarreal. As you're beginning to see, it does take a village, actually, to do everything we need to do for Dawn Mountain. I'd also like to report briefly on the Development Committee's work. I'm the chair of the Development Committee. And in 2021, the capital campaign started winding down and focus shifted to special events and annual giving to support normal operations. The committee held an auction during the May Dzogchen Cycles retreat, plus an online auction, open to the entire Sangha, both raising over $76,000. Wow. It also engaged in year-end fundraising that yielded $19,000 in late 2021 and early 2022. And that's aside from just normal capital campaign pledges, general giving. We have generous people who will just like tell us they're giving us $25,000. So we augment the generosity of people in our Sangha. In looking ahead for 2022, the capital campaign will come to a formal close, and the committee will spotlight special events, including a May online auction and a fall event to celebrate Lama Rigzen's 75th birthday, while we also continue to promote annual giving. So whenever the spirit moves you, we appreciate it. So stay tuned for more information about these engaging opportunities. Here begins a review of a lot of financial data. So please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A session at the end of the meeting, and let's start with a brief finance report on the capital campaign and Skylit Temple building. I'll give you some background before we walk through the numbers. Dawn Mountain receives two kinds of donations, unrestricted and restricted. Unrestricted contributions may be used at management's discretion based on the organization's operational needs, like personnel, services, supplies, rent, and online program support, including being deposited in checking accounts in years when revenue surpasses expenses. Restricted donations, on the other hand, are given for a specific use and cannot be used for any other purposes. They're in a special subaccount. Since the start of the campaign in 2018, funds given specifically for the Skylit Temple purchase and renovation were logged as restricted only, with other donations designated as unrestricted. However, between 2018 and 2020, all funds raised, that would have meant those that were restricted and unrestricted, were reported to you as being raised against the capital campaign goal, which is a common campaign practice. The combination of the two was what we reported to you in email updates and last year's annual report. So, for example, under 2021, we have that we raised $985,491 as of the end of 2021. And then $847,886 as of the end of 2020. Last year, we reported that the total funds received were $1,030,513. And that's because we were also including the unrestricted funds. An issue developed in late 2020, which was as funds restricted to the building became fully expended, we had to begin to draw upon unrestricted cash to pay for renovations. To report on temple expenditures clearly, it made sense to begin to separate restricted capital campaign funds from unrestricted operations funds. And that's what we're seeing here in rows A and B. So row A shows the cumulative fund total donated to the capital campaign as of the end of 2021, the $985,491, which was also fully expended by the end of 2021. The important thing to note is that we have spent all of the capital campaign funds on the building as designated by our donors. Shown in row B, because there was a deficit of campaign funds, Dawn Mountain withdrew money from its operations checking account to pay the balance needed for the work on the building, respectively, $45,389 in 2020, and a much larger $293,022 in 2021. Row C shows the cumulative total funds expended on the building by the end of 2021, which was $1,278,512. So row D indicates that at the end of 2020, we needed $295,000 for the following year, which would be 2021, for what we thought would be the completion of all work required to move in. And we expended that amount by the end of 2020, using a combination of restricted and unrestricted funds, as I just described. The issue is that as we dipped further into unrestricted funds, and that's why I've constructed this in this way, we were getting into money that we really would need for operations. So, and we also realized that there would be money needed for major work over the next 3 years. And that Row D also reveals that at the end of 2020, we were unable to move into the building as new issues required more work to be done in 2022, projected to cost $168,303. So going to the final row, row E, the $33,000 in 2022 capital campaign funds, which have begun to come in January. Pledge for the temple again fell short of the amount needed to pay for all the remaining work needed to be done to move into the building this year. So with building costs rising and overall revenue declining, after much thought and discussion, as Kate has described, the boards concluded that continuing to expend operations funds on the temple no longer seemed tenable or wise. We decided then to do the minimum work needed to sell the building, and that's currently estimated at $115,000, toward which the remaining $33,000 coming in this year will be fully expended against, along with more operations funds. So now I'll walk you through the 2021 revenue and expense figures. And if in fact that was clear as mud to you, please bring your questions to the Q&A session at the end. So as you probably know, revenue is generated from paid program registrations, cash donations, event income, like from the Dzogchen Cycles annual auction, and when possible, in-person galas, which we have not been able to hold for the last number of years due to the pandemic, and also paid memberships, along with the occasional grant. Without the ability to gather together in person due to the pandemic, in 2021, all income categories except for grants were down from the previous year. With the winding down of the capital campaign, donations in particular had declined significantly. Still, we applied for and received a federal government payroll protection program grant, which provided some relief. Regarding 2021 expenses, payroll and operating costs were down with the staff vacancy in the executive director position, along with staff working from home due to the pandemic. Overall, however, total expenses were up significantly due to the added Skylit Temple renovation costs. 2021 total liabilities decreased when we renegotiated the Skylit Temple mortgage at the beginning of last year with a lower interest rate and reduced monthly payments. Mortgage principal payments and continued investment in capital renovations resulted in growing net assets. So this ends my treasurer's report. And I'd like to thank you all. And now back to Bill.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you very much. All right, and now it's time for our next exemplar of awesomeness, Carolyn McKnight. She's been a board member since 2018, and she's going to talk about her work with the program working group and then facilitate the question and answer period after she's done. Carolyn?
Bill. It's a great pleasure to be with all of you, and I would just repeat, as my colleagues have, the great honor it is to serve in this capacity for Don Mountain, our Sangha, and our dear lamas. There's a Rilke quote that I quite like, Rilke, the German poet and novelist, and it goes something like this: "We must give birth to images. They are the future waiting to be born. The future enters us long before it happens." We clearly see that with our lamas. They receive all kinds of wonderful information, first by way of image sometimes, and then words. We have another person I want to really thank today. Two people, but first Gary. Gary, who had visions of what we would need long ago. And thanks to his foresight, his dogged determination, we're blessed to have had this virtual capacity when we most needed it. So Gary, bows to you. I thank you as one individual who has benefited greatly and on behalf of our larger Sangha. So how many of you know Gary and Emily? Give us the universal, hand clap. Yes, we know them, we love them. You can't see these hands waved because we're not in the gallery currently, but many bows to you. And Emily, I hope you all know why this is so important right now. We have been operating 100% virtually. We're now going into our third year. 100% virtual operations. And there are very few hours, if any, of broadcast that Emily has not hosted or co-hosted, made possible. And it's just another manifestation of incredible diligence and dedication. I suppose some of you know who or what this little cupcake with something on top of it represents. This is our, Simone has trained us well. She's always started with a little bit of humor or something light. So here's this unicorn on top of a cupcake. Some of you may remember that the unicorn, I think it's adopted as the broadcast team's mascot. So with a little bit of a gesture to the unicorn. Thank you, Gary and Emily. Now I'm going to speak mostly about program logistics, not so much content. You've heard some from the lamas and other gestures, but I do want to acknowledge the working group. Albrecht and Jack is kind of moving off. I think of his priorities. Janet, Bhatna, who's just moving on, Simone, and Stephanie. And of course, we are blessed to have Emily and Wendy with us always. This group, I would say that we're focusing on how to make this virtual experience more predictable, have the schedule work, the logistics, the timing, and make certain that we have the materials that we need as we move into these sessions. We're also continuing to prepare, obviously, for the future. But I want to thank this group for the incredible diligence. Marketing is a challenge for us. And so one of the things that we want to do in addition to the logistics is to really make inroads into understanding more how and where to market to get our very well-kept treasure more broadly accessible. Our course instructors we want to also acknowledge. These individuals have prepared for years in many cases. Their practice is deep. And whether it's through a Teaching Tuesday Dharma Explorations course, perhaps one in a couple of evenings, 2 weeks in a row, or a standalone course, a reading group, these instructors have been so important to us. And so again, this is a moment for us to acknowledge the individuals who have helped the programming become possible. Whoops. Back to the share. Meditation leaders are also important. And I think in this time of virtual participation, it's even more important. The satisfaction is different and the planning it takes to show up. But to each of you, Charlie, Claire, Elizabeth, Janet, Kaisu, Mark, Marina, Howney, Sharon, and Terry, thank you so much for the contribution week after week and the dedication to making this possible. So with a great concern, I'm going to push this button again. And you'll come to a graphic that you might remember from last year at this meeting. And with thanks to Albrecht for creating this. what we do talk about in the program working group a lot and with our lamas is the 3 different offerings that we're seeking to make available. And as they so in a lovely way told us about earlier today in the meeting, the origin of the cycles, which is in the center, the Dzogchen piece of what we're offering. As Lama Rigson Drolma says so often, these are interpenetrating. It's not as if there's one that's standalone, but they bleed into each other. And we want to continue to engage more individuals in the cycles offerings. These are by approval, as most of you know. The gold, the next ring out, is more open, and yet it still feeds into the inner circle, of course. And we have visiting teachers there. So Lama Tenzin, all of these individuals that you have hopefully come to study with and recognize will be out in that gold ring. We've had some successes in the blue area as well. There's a couple of things that were so important to me, and you might be thinking back over the year in terms of your own experience. 2 sessions that I was particularly drawn to. The Tibetan art with Eric Huntington, I thought was quite wonderful. And you may remember a Sunday afternoon with Miyoki Kane Barrett, co-hosted by the Houston Zen Center, was a wonderful community offering as well. So in the community outer engagement area, Qigong was new this year with Simon. And we're hoping to get back to the family development offerings soon. It's simply true that it's difficult to do this without a place. And while Simone continues to work on reintroducing that when we can in the children's program, we're hoping to have a teen offering as well as a parenting offering. And Simone and Stephanie Clary working on the latter, the parenting one. So stay tuned. These are the things that absorb us in our conversations, but I think I'll leave it there. We've had some other information on the program content. The logistics themselves are what we're seeking to also help improve. So that we have timely reminders, particularly as we're 100% virtual, so that the experience can be pleasant and easily accessible. With that, I would just say we hope to continue to thrive as a virtual community. We are so blessed to have had this opportunity during these last couple of years. So while we're working to gather together again in person, we hope to support each other in thriving in this virtual way until that becomes possible. And so thank you all for your participation and in your eagerness to get back with us when possible. So with that having been said, Bill?
Can I interject just a late breaking development?
Please.
There's a correction in the annual report. The total, the expense totals in 2020, that should be $1,059,827. And for 21, it should be $1,284,952. Pardon the interruption. I just wanted to make sure
Excuse me.
got that.
Bill, excuse me.
Yep, I got it wrong.
That's the net assets.
Net
It's
assets, excuse me.
Net assets, yes. Sorry. Thanks to John Pfeiffer for noticing that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all. And with apologies, I know there are several other things that may have been missed. And so, and the risk when we're acknowledging people also, please know that every single individual who has touched this wonderful network is important to us. And we thank all of you, in addition to those that have been named. So we're now going to move to some Q&A, just about on time here. And so we're going to go back to some of the more perhaps technical things that can't be fully described as we're making a slide presentation. But please, if you have a question, I invite you. I haven't seen any in the chat. And so if you have a question, use the emoticon. And again, it's at the bottom of your screen under the reactions icon. And if you click on the reactions icon, you will get a raise hand. If you poke that, then it will be clear that there is a question. And I invite you to do that now. I hope that there are some questions. And great, I see one from Julia. So this is encouraging. And then Jindati. So let's start with you, Julia, please. And I will do my best to direct the question to the right person, unless you have a person to whom you're directing the question, which is also wonderful. So thank you, Julia.
I don't know who to direct the question to, and I realize it may also be a premature question, but I'm still pretty new to Dawn Mountain, as most of you know. I've never been there physically at all. I've never visited the previous center. So I was wondering, and again, I recognize this may be unanswerable at this point with COVID still raging, but is there any sense or expectation of what physical center might replace the one that is now going to be sold? If there is a hope to get a smaller one, or if there is a hope to rent in the meantime at the time when we are able to get together again. And again, I know it's probably a pretty fuzzy question for what may be a fuzzy answer, but I was curious about it because I know how much it often means to people to have a physical place.
Thank you for the question, Julia. It's a very important one, and one that we spend quite a lot of time on. We do have some criteria, and I would invite either Joanne or Kate to kind of weigh in here too, or Bill, you've been involved in the working with the Houston group. You know, it's difficult. So we're really pondering that. We clearly need a place, the local community, for certain, if the rest of us can't fly in. And when that will happen from Europe or for the rest of the US, it's uncertain. You from North America, Julia, I realize you're Canadian. So, but all of us collectively, you know, that's an unknown. But of course, there is really an important need for the local community. So we're thinking about it and pondering it and putting some specifics in place. But as yet, it's not fully formed. Kate or Joanne or Bill, could you add to that?
I think you've covered the big parts of it. We'll get it'll be a process to get the other building on the market, get it sold, and then get our feet back under us. But we understand the importance, and we've been tasked to find another place as soon as we can do it, and support it economically.
I guess I would also add one thing, that the realtor that we are engaging to help us with the sale will also help with vetting some potential these spaces if that comes to pass. That's right, Bill?
That's absolutely right, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
So Jindati, great to see you. Do you have a question for us?
Sorry. Yes. Actually, I had the same question that Julianne had, and I like to also put some input in that came out of a long conversation with Eric around a few months ago, and then also my own input in things. So yeah, we believe that we really need a yogi village, you know. Actually, that would mean a temple where people cannot stay, is quite ineffective in many ways. So I do understand, you know, and thank you for all your hard work and all the great things happening. And of course, you know, totally aware of all that. But I think it's really important to have a place where people can come like from 1-day retreats to 3 months retreats. Best would be like 3 months, especially if it's Nundro or Vajrasattva or something, then you have like almost guaranteed experience in a place like that. And I think that would be very effective. And Eric likes to have this village in Hawaii. And I would, suggest that Houston isn't a very good, it's very difficult to get around in Houston. So if it has to be in Texas, I would think Austin would be much better, especially with the whole new development there of the new sustainable revolution that's going on, and especially in Texas. So that's kind of my input in that, and that or to help Eric, and I would commit also if the place is in Hawaii and people, I would set it up and totally, like, I built 2 houses in my life and sold several, and so I I know how to deal with those things, so I can help in that way if it would be in Hawaii. And if it's a place where people can stay, I would even do it in Austin, to come to Austin. Okay, so that's what my input is.
Thank you so much for the suggestion and for your interest and concern. That would be quite a pivot to Hawaii. And I understand the draw. So thank you for the input. We've had a number of offered ideas. And so, of course, we want to, receive them all with good open hearts and really make certain that we consider this next move as a very important one, which it is. Your dream is certainly shared by our lamas. It's always been a long dream to have a place where people could come and stay and practice together. So the vision generally is shared. So let's move to Mark. Mark, lovely to see you as always.
Thank you. Yeah, my question, I know that, obviously we've had big aspirations, and so we've had big requirements. I know that programming has also gone up, and my concern is around that being of access to people who wouldn't be able to pay the full costs. And I know that especially while we're digital, it's hard to feel comfortable in relationship with us and staff to ask for that. And I was wondering if we have in mind, as we hopefully have costs go down with eventually selling the building, if there's an idea of how we can reach out and make it available for people in the meantime who can't pay the cost to feel able to still participate, or to lower the cost of our programming as our costs go down. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That's a really great question, one that weighs on some of us quite heavily. The program working group does talk about this significantly. I wish we had access to some of them to help us out right now. It is certainly for several reasons. One, we want a more diverse community. We want to invite both socioeconomically, et cetera, for all the reasons that we know. Sharing the Dharma with people, we all need it. And for some people who could benefit so greatly, cost is absolutely an issue. And so we've reinstituted the tiered kind of pricing schedule. We try to make it clear that it should not be an obstacle for anyone who can't afford it. We also know that can be an issue of discomfort for some. So we've talked about that at great length. How do we remove the potential that the shame button might get triggered, or just discomfort generally? So I personally am really appreciative that you remind us of that. We hadn't specifically tied it to costs going down, but you make a good point. It's just generally something we need to do to make it more accessible. And We've also talked about scholarships or those who can pay more to pay more, making that clear, inviting those who can pay more. But in any way we can seek to bring in those who can't afford it, we'd like to. If you have additional ideas, it would be lovely. But I really appreciate that you have that in your heart. It's, I think, important to our growth and to our aspiration to become more diverse. So we'll work on it. And again, with all of you, and Mark, in this case, and if any of these questions, if you have ideas, please contact us to send them so that we can take advantage of them. Ideas about the new facility, programming, pricing, all of these things. Mark, thank you. Deborah, I see a hand. Lovely to see you today.
It gave me a message instead of just doing it. I don't know. I apologize for being late. We had a power failure. I guess it's the wind for 15 minutes and my phone wasn't charged. So anyway, I really appreciate everything everybody's done, all of you keeping this going. And I have two items. One is I was trying to put together in my head the full amount that's been expended on the building since 2018. Was it that 1.8 million or was, well, it was more than that, but plus, or was that just last year? It said cumulative. I just wondered about that. I guess Joanne?
Joanne, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I do. So it is in that first chart, and it's in the annual report also. So the Skylight Temple purchase, repair, and renovation 2018 to 2021, C, row C, cumulative total funds expended as of the end of 2021 is $1,278,512.
Okay, I wrote down a different number, but thank you. You know, I was listening more than I was writing. So thank you. I'm glad to know that. It's been pretty amazing. I'm sorry that things worked out how they did. But my other thing, which actually, and I do appreciate because retirement finances haven't gone the way I expected, is that I noticed they lowered the Dzogchen basis, the cycles basis this year. And I think that will help some people. You know, it was, the lower end was lower than it's been. And I appreciate that. And the next thing is in terms of gathering. It's my understanding before I came to Dawn Mountain 8.5 years ago that there were some offsite retreats at the Margaret. I can't remember if y'all did go to Margaret Austin once, I think, with Rinpoche, which has now been purchased by the Houston Zen Center. And there is another center kind of across the highway from there. It's a Buddhist center. I'm not sure if, I know the Thich Nhat Hanh group goes there. I don't know if they own it or not. And there's the one up in Magnolia, which I went to once with Houston Zen. So in the short run, if we can ever travel, short of building a center where we could stay, there are some resources in the Houston area that are owned by Buddhist groups. And so I just wanted to put that out there. I personally, as a person who lives here, have greatly enjoyed hosting people in my home and volunteering in many ways for the retreats here. But sometimes I wished I could just go somewhere, if that makes sense. And Anne's nodding. And so I personally would appreciate even locally to hear there's something with these centers or something. I would be more than glad to research what that's about at the present time. Wendy's smiling, you know, so that's something I would be willing to help volunteer to look into, just to have the information off to the side. And anyway, but Kate's nodding. I'd be happy to volunteer for anything. Well, I should be careful what I say. But anyway.
It's recorded.
Well, oh no. Well, I always was. I have complained to friends not at Down Mountain. Gee, I don't have any way to help at Down Mountain anymore. So I think I helped in the past, not sure. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out. Even here, there might be resources. I'm trying to remember the most of, I can't remember. Margaret Austin is now something with the cloud in the name, I think. But, you know, it's more dorm style, all of these places, but it is an option. And thank you to everybody for all your hard work to keep this going, and the precious llamas.
Thank you, Deborah. And I encourage if any of the rest of you have a question, please, we have a bit more time. If you can raise your hand so I can see you, it would be wonderful to get your questions out or your comments to the Sangha. So please, I see one more hand, at least Charlie here. So Charlie, please, good to see you today.
Hi, good to see you.
Well,
thank you. I have a question that I've asked before, and I don't remember the difference, the answer. What is the difference between the Dawn Mountain Board and the Temple Board, or what? And what do those function? What is their function?
it's a great question. It comes up frequently. And let's see, Kate, do you want to take that one?
Well, yeah, I'll do my best. They have two different roles. Dawn Mountain is a 501c3. It's a nonprofit. And there are actually kind of two different areas of concern or what they work on. Dawn Mountain has a research institute, or we have hopes to have one, a community center that was part of the Dawn Mountain side of the two boards. The temple itself is legally a church. So it is indeed a church, and it's the temple that owns the building. They have different reporting requirements. They have slightly different legal status, but they're both, considered nonprofits. And we have talked a little bit about, what is the usefulness? Do we want to continue to have two boards? Is one board better? There, we have reasons for having two, and we do revisit it on and off. So it's a great question. It's something that happened over time, and that evolved over time. And it was partly on the Dawn Mountain side, the ability to get maybe grants or support that probably wouldn't go to a church. So let's say community development funds. If you had something going on in the temple, like at the temple, and you wanted to get maybe community development funds or a particular kind of grant that might not go to a church, those are the kinds of things. That was the thinking behind it. So, but thanks for the question.
Thanks. That's a lot clearer.
Okay, excellent.
Great. We love it when we can help make things more clear. It often feels like we're creating more swirl or mud, but so thank you for the question, Charlie. And Katya, great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have something that I've been thinking about for a few months, and I don't know if it's useful in this context, but I'm thinking to bring it up now. And that is the related to the Dawn Mountain mission. And I know we, and just today, in today's presentations, we heard a lot about the mission being related to very much about Dawn Mountain being a place for curious people everywhere. And my thinking has been that, gosh, that doesn't feel big enough. I feel like what Adzom Pelo Rinpoche is about is really big and really really critical in these times, and that to the extent that intentions or visions do help create outcomes, I'm wondering if an expansion of the mission might be helpful, and not to dismiss the importance of all levels of interest, not as our lamas have spoken to. Dawn Mountain, I'm not suggesting that it be just for only for serious practitioners who spend a certain amount of their lives in practice. Not that that's a criteria, but that somehow making the vision bigger and more commensurate with Rinpoche's offerings and who he is and his teachings. I think an expansion of the mission or the vision might be useful. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Great. Katya, thank you. And we do discuss that often as well. Whether we really hone in on certain of the aspects that you've mentioned, the rich teachings, or continue with the current mission as stated. And it's certainly near and dear to our hearts. It's worth some more conversation. So thank you for being willing to offer your reflections publicly. I really appreciate it. And it probably takes some more conversation to truly understand what was in your heart. But I would love to do that. And so Harvey Law, you have a response to the last question before Katya's question, then we'll move to Julia.
Do you want to say? Yeah, put on your earpiece. It just, while it is true that we do not currently have a physical location for the Research Institute, the Research Institute, in fact, has already been productive. 2 of Anne's books are produced under the aegis of the Research Institute, and 3 more, which are under contract with Wisdom, are also under the aegis of the Research Institute. So it's actually a functioning, entity, even though it doesn't have a physical location.
I'd also like to, this actually relates also to what you just discussed, Katya. The part of the way that we are wanting to support and spread Adzom Rinpoche and the Adzom lineage is through the work that's being done in the research center. The 3 books that are coming forward are actually going to be part of a new series called House of Adzom at the Wisdom. And they will include Adzom Rinpoche's commentary on the 7 trainings, which was our first Dzogchen Cycles teaching. The second one will be a translation of Adzom Trukpa's Ngondro teachings, his commentary on Jigme Lingpa. And the third one, a discussion which Rinpoche kind of, blessed me for, Yeshut Sogel, kind of an extensive reflection on Yeshut Sogel. And there are other things in the works too. Other Dzogchen teachings, for example, by Tenzin Sampo. We've been doing transcripts. And so that's very much part of how we feel, enlarge the vision. And as Carolyn said, what further ideas you might have in that, please let us know. You are right. Rinpoche is huge in every possible sense. And the prophecies about him are also huge. May he live long. He is prophesied to live a very long life and do a lot in many, many places. And of course, right now, things, are how they are. And we really pray that that happens and that whatever that we are able to do, is a foundation and furthering of that. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. I add my thanks to all of the comments and questions so far. Yeah.
Thank you, Lamas. So back to you, Julia, for will probably be our final question, and then I will pass it back to Lamas. Julia, please.
Okay, it's it's really just a comment as somebody who has never been to Houston, rarely in the United States. I am just so blown away by the offerings of the center and the lamas and all the people who are part of the community. My only experience of Dawn Mountain has been online. That's the only experience. And yet I feel so warmly held and so loved and so supported by this community. From the very beginning, it was like that. And it's quite hard in some ways to have that closeness and that sense of support and intimacy on Zoom. And yet I do feel it. And it's one of the things that attracted me and has kept me here. And in fact, a friend of mine who recently joined Dawn Mountain said something of that to me after her first sort of session in dipping her own toe in. So I just wanted to reflect that and thank everyone. And also a really big special thanks to Gary and to Emily, without whom none of this could be possible. I've been part of other groups and other centers who have things online, but I have to say that the smoothness and ease and friendliness with which it's done here is really exceptional. It's really exceptional. And I think a lot of that must be due surely to both Emily's diligence and friendliness and Gary's foresight in having seen into the future and knowing that something like this needed to be present. And it is really, truly one of the great strengths of the center. So I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. It's very meaningful to all of us to hear each of you reflect. So if I see no additional hands, I'd just like to make a couple of final comments. You know, Gandhi is often credited with the statement, "Be the change." It's questionable whether he ever actually said that, but it's fairly certain that he said, "My life is my message. My life is my message." And I want to just credit our lamas whose lives are their message, their scholarship, their practice, their teaching. It's so utterly remarkable. Each of us is blessed to have come into your path. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you. However, before I pass it back to you, I see that we do have Carol away with a question or a comment. So Carol, I want to acknowledge you very briefly first, and then I'll pass it back to the lamas. Carol, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, just a brief comment on my appreciation of what Kasia was saying in terms of how I experience that intention of inviting curious people everywhere. That I find that extremely expansive, and that it invites a kind of wisdom that's universal, and that it's just so palpable and available to everyone, without this sense of you have to be a Buddhist in order to know how to train people to move or train people how to investigate things or whatever, you know, that one time I had a conversation with both lamas, Ann and Harvey, and they were encouraging me to do some kind of presentation that would involve people from outside the community who are amazing in their ability to synthesize and bring together what it is to be present. And yeah, so I just wanted to say that I appreciate that part of the statement of what Dawn Mountain's about, that it's so open in that way. Yeah, thank you.
I think that many of us also experience those words in that way. It is very, it's one thing is clear, we can experience these words in different ways. So I appreciate all the comments that have been made about what might be most useful.
Yeah, I also appreciate very much what Kasia was saying, but I just wanted to say that about my take on that one.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And now back to those whose life is their message, to whom we have such gratitude, for whom we have such gratitude. To wrap up our afternoon, thank you all for being here. Lamas, please, if you could give us a wrap, I would be grateful.
A wrap. you know that I'm on the brink of tears. It's really just so moving to take all of you in, and dare I say, we know ourselves through the company that we keep, and who could have better, more enriching, more supportive, more reflective, more appreciative company. And it's very, very moving to hear people's offerings. We have kind of tried to move some mountains, and we've run into some obstacles, and there is pain that we've experienced. Our decisions were not easy to come to. We've been very, very touched by the support of people we've talked to and people who have shared of their time and their resources. We are moving forward. We are very, very dedicated to moving Rinpoche's vision forward. This has been a very, very challenging period. It's been many, many whammies. Many of you have had personal challenges and continue to have personal challenges. Many have had either their own personal health challenged or those they love. Some have lost those they love. It's a very, very tough period. And not being able to meet in person has been challenging. The financial challenges have been hard. Not having the ability to bring in new people physically has been challenging. And really, it's the blessings of our teachers, the lineage, Buddhas, the Dharma, the community. You are the community. This has been sustaining for us. Zoom has been a kind of nirmanakaya. I mean, this is the emanation body of the 21st century. It might seem simple to do something like we just have experienced together, but there have been a lot of women and man hours expended in creating this presentation. And we've heard of everyone who is worthy of appreciation. And I just want to again single out Wendy, our interim executive director. Wendy Fillmore has worked very, very hard on creating this presentation. Bill Prentice, Carolyn McKnight, Joanne Schneider, and Kate Hutton. And it's a little bit hard to know who has been singed more, and I mean burned literally, by all the work that people have been doing. It's hard for people to understand and know. We have 4 volunteers, and now Wendy is a paid ED, but I think each in their own way, from what I can tell, has been working more than a full-time job and doing what they've been doing for Dawn Mountain. And it's even painful to contemplate what they have done, because they really have offered themselves up. It's, in a way, in real time, they have offered their bodies and their skandhas to take care of the rest of the world. Our audiovisual team, over and over, we thank Emily and Gary for everything they have done. They will be here this week, once again, remodeling our living room to make it more effective and more efficient. And Mary O'Byrne, who is a friend from Switzerland, this backdrop is thanks to her. Sherman Williams became a good friend this week, and lo and behold, she'd been studying calligraphy, so she really knows how to wield the brush. And one color we put up didn't work, and this is where we're at now, at least. And hopefully we're going to get some lighting improvement this week from, I think Emily's got that planned. You know, we do have all beings in mind. We have all beings in mind, even the nasty, mean ones today. I mean, at core, they have a Buddha nature. Hard to sort of take that in. But as much as the world hates, whether it's, you know, the Putins of the world or the Khomeinis of the world, or we have to really, at some level, keep them in mind when we practice, when we do, when we cultivate bodhicitta. It's not popular. I mean, one of the most awkward moments in my life was after 9/11, which was so terrible, horrific. And I think it was about 4 or 5 days after, and there was a gathering of the first responders. I mean, talk about people who are bodhisattvas. And Richard Gere got up, bless his soul, and he tried to say something about compassion for the terrorists. And he was just roundly and loudly booed by the first responders. Very, very painful, very, very understandable. And it was clear that there's a moment for talking about compassion for evil people, and that it's very, very hard for people. But we really need to. This is one of our challenges as Buddhists, is to be kind. I mean, in a way, the two extremes of the challenge is kind to ourselves. Many, many people have difficulty with that challenge. And the other extreme is kind to those who are evil. That's where we really need a lot of consideration and growth, ourselves and to the truly nasties. And there are so many. They are a little bit like rabbits nowadays. So when we dedicate our virtue, we are dedicating to all beings without exception, ourselves, others, including those who are creating mayhem and absolute pain and destruction in the world for no reason aside from petty political. We want to maximize wellness, kindness, and wisdom. And a wisdom that's not just cleverness and even knowing how to do accounts and write reports and skillful with, but a wisdom that is actually so tasty and so free and so spacious. And if we even come within its neighborhood, we just feel like we've arrived at an oasis. Mm. This is our home and our target, where we come from and where we're going. And so maybe we will formally dedicate as we normally do in English. And thank you all for participating, coming, supporting us with your time, effort, your treasure, your practice, most of all, practice. We influence one another even across time and space, and Rinpoche influences us across time and space with our practice. Let us all continue with health, and may we all be fruitional in many ways in the future. By this good, may I swiftly once become a great guru, lead all beings, everyone, to reach to that very ground. Thank you so much. If you wish to unmute and say hello, we'd love to hear from you all.
Carol ahead.
Can you unmute them, Emily? Is that possible?
People can now unmute themselves.
What's that?
They can now unmute.
You can now unmute yourself.
Well, I just want to say that when I told one of my friends who's an amazing movement and psychotherapist
Oh,
Yeah, just so you know.
Lovely, lovely.
well, love is the biggest vision of all. You know, I was thinking of what you said, Katya, about the enormity of Ajahn Rinpoche's vision as Harvey was talking. It's really about the inclusivity of everyone in our heart. And I remember it just was so amazing to me. Some of you may remember too, when Rinpoche is standing up and saying, "I love all beings in all 6 realms." That means the good ones and the bad ones. And I never heard anybody say that before. And I think you were saying that in our contemporary way. And yes, to the bigness of that vision, the endless immensity, boundless immensity of it.
I remember one year when he said that when he was in Houston. He said, "I love you." What that means is each one of you. And I went, "Oh my God," because Katya, he's so huge. I mean, I was thinking, does he see someone like so small as me? You know, So it was so delightful and healing to hear that. And I just want to say that what I appreciate the most about what you've been doing, both of you, Ann and Harvey Lamas, is the way that you have created this ability for us as a group to contemplate together, to express our inner experience, and to feel invited to do that, and to feel open and supported in doing that. It's so rare, and it's really such a marvelous gift. So much of the Buddhist community doesn't, in my own personal experience, I may be wrong, doesn't have that. All of the blessings flow from the Lama, you know, and get supported by the community. But here we have such a mutual support to see each other's marvelous goodness, and that we all have this potential for experiencing reality in our immediate experience. It's not like it's way out there. So I love that you're doing this, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina,
Thank you
for that so much. Really, really appreciate it. And acknowledging and recognizing something we have felt. And really, it's been a developmental thing for us as people and from our own experience. And we've seen the value of it for ourselves, and we have wanted to share it. And we recognize that it is our meaning of Sangha and in our culture, and we're trying to make it effective in the way that our culture operates. And I think we're succeeding, and it's very, very rich and very, very rewarding. And all of you are the gems that are arising within this sea of wonderfulness.
And Rinpoche is a big part of that. I think the energy that propels you to keep doing that. So it's not like there's a split, you know.
No split.
No split.
Really, it's the wholeness, the completeness. That's the ultimate teaching, really.
Yeah.
No separation. Rinpoche always would go like this, you will remember. No separation, always together. In the deep sense, maybe sometimes hard to understand, but ultimately it's true. And we keep trying to understand that more and more completely.
Kat has her hand up. What would you like to say, Kat?
I just wanted to say how enormously pleased I was to hear what you said about the Research Institute. I'm thrilled to hear this.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I've wondered, I've seen it in print.
Right.
And I thought, well, I know research institutes. I haven't known very many that did have a physical location, to tell you the truth, but they have a lot of papers that need a physical location, but I'm thrilled to hear this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being thrilled and for saying so. Thank you, Kat.
So I'm mindful of people's time. I'm mindful of your contributions. May you all be well, and may we love one another. And may we all in one mandala arrive in the Pure Land together. Love to you all.
Love to you all. Thank you.
Take care. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Emily,
everyone.
Carry on.
Thank you.
Emily,
Carry
Good
on.
Unicorn, you
Thanks so much.
can sign us out, Emily.
Good
Good
unicorn.
to see you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank